Adam here from the Walser Automotive Group. What I want to do today is take you for a test drive. So next to me here, I have the 2025 Dodge Daytona Charger EV. We'll look at the interior, exterior, some of the trim level specifics, and see what it's like out on the road. All right, so we're behind the wheel of the Dodge Charger Daytona EV, and this is the RT. So this is kind of the base trim. They're gonna have two main trim levels, the RT and then the Scat Pack. There's a few different little things you can add into them, but now for 25, the big difference is they added two more doors. So not only is the coupe version the only one, you can also do the 4-door model. So if you wanna make it a little easier for people hopping in, get a little bit more space, that would be an option there. Now, before we put it in drive and go for a spin around, or even fire it up for that matter, we have to touch on some of the battery stuff. So this particular one has a 93.9 kilowatt hour nickel cobalt aluminum battery, and that is what's going to provide the juice for this model. So the peak charge rate on this one is going to be 183 kilowatt hours, and they say you can go from about 20 to 80% in just over 27 minutes. So fast charging is an option. The charger is here on the driver's side of the vehicle, and so you can do all the way up to level 3 DC CCS fast charging, which is important to note. Now the range will change depending on which model you're looking at. The one we have here today will have a 308 mile range, which is the RT, and both are going to come with the all-wheel drive as standard because it is a 2-motor vehicle. Now if you go with the Scat Pack, that's going to dip a little bit lower to about 241 miles of total range. Now, what's the biggest difference between the two would be the horsepower. Now, one thing we'll touch on a little bit more, which is the power shot button, but that would add an additional 40 horsepower to the RT and 80 horsepower to the Scat Pack. So what does that mean in terms of total output? This one makes 496 horsepower, and the bigger one in the Scat Pack will make 670 horsepower. So Dodge still left the soul of a muscle car in here, and I think the styling on the exterior speaks to that as well, and a few touches inside. But for now, before we even get going, I've got my phone here and it's hooked up to this new Uconnect system, and it's such an upgrade from the outgoing Charger or Challenger, which they've kind of meshed together into this one model. The Uconnect system is awesome, but for now, we've got the key on us. Let's push the button and fire it up and you'll hear just what it sounds like. I know it won't do justice picking up on camera, but it sounds like a jet engine firing up behind you. Now, one of the things that's pretty unique to this, which is love-hate I've seen both ways, it has a speaker on the outside of the vehicle. So depending on which drive mode you're in, this particular one has the Sport, which you can hear I flip it over, it gets a little more rumble. You've got your Wet and Snow, and then just the Auto mode. So if you want to make some noise and have a little bit more fun when you're behind the wheel, flipping it into the Sport mode would be the way to go. So for now, let's use this kind of pistol grip shifter, which is again sort of that throwback feel. We'll put it in drive, go for a spin around. Now I like that they didn't do buttons and they didn't make it through some infotainment screen. They gave you an old school style shifter. That makes me, again, just that touch to the muscle car heritage. I like it, it works nicely. It doesn't take up a huge amount of space either, as you do get 2 large cup holders down here. You also get a pretty decent sized little storage cubby here. And one of the cool things is you can even remote start this vehicle. You can keep the key on you. They left some room to throw it in here. That is pretty nice. Now, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews about the Charger EV. I was excited to get behind the wheel because I think the RT might actually be the one to go for. This one, like I said, is a little down on horsepower, but having a 308 mile range is nothing to really scoff at. That could get you hopefully through your week, maybe even a couple weeks, depending on your commute status, but the charging is also pretty nice. And I kind of also like the idea of the Dodge Charger. That to me is just kind of writes itself, but really, I mean, as a day-to-day vehicle, something to live with, this thing is pretty awesome. So now, like I said, the different sport modes, we'll kick it into sport. You kind of hear it wake up a little bit. And if you put your foot down, okay, that is a good time. Let's put it back into auto for a second so I don't get too distracted, but it's fast. I can only imagine that the Scat Pack is really fast, but you gotta make sure you have everything locked down in the trunk area or it will go flying. Now, speaking of the trunk area, one of the things that kind of surprises people is that it's actually more of a hatchback. The glass actually comes up with the trunk, and it's a huge amount of space back there. You even can fold down that second row if you want, but just popping that open, I threw all my camera gear back there, all of your stuff. You can easily put a couple sets of golf clubs. And then the other thing that blew me away is I almost had more room in the second row than I do in some crossover SUVs. There was headroom back there, you get knee space. They even put vents back there, which you don't usually see for a coupe model, and a couple of USB-C charging ports. Now, as you go through the lineup, you can even add heated seats to that second row. So if you got the family, you want to throw them in there, this seat, when you actually fold it forward, it power slides for you. So it does make it pretty easy to get in and out. Now, one of the other cool things in here is the full glass sunroof up above. So it's kind of like a panoramic sunroof, but you can't really see it from the outside. It almost gives the vehicle a two-tone appearance, but it does open it up nicely in here. And I really like that feature, especially if you're going to be putting the kids in the back. Now, what about from the driver's seat? So there's a few different seating options. I think it's kind of meant to almost be like a circuit board on the seats here. You can do the Alcantara and kind of that leather mix in the Scat Pack, but these seats are really comfortable. Not only are they heated for the driver and the passenger, but you've also got the heated steering wheel. I love that feature. It was a little chilly this morning when I first got going, so having that on does make a pretty big difference. Now, the steering wheel itself is going to have the plus and minus paddle shifters, what you would think on there, but they're not actually shifting for the motor. What that is going to change is the regen amount. So you can set it from a 3, 2, or 1 regen, and if you put it all the way up into 3, it will pull you down pretty fast. So it will help you build back a little bit of energy that way, but if you want, you can leave it in the 1 mode, and when you lift, it will just kind of barely be noticeable while you're coasting. Now, the other thing you can change is through the infotainment screen here on the Uconnect system, you can actually go through and adjust quite a few things for how you want the steering responsive to be, depending on which mode you're actually in. So whether that's the sport mode or just the auto mode, you can kind of adjust some of the firmness levels on stuff. I do like that. You can really dial in a lot of pretty cool stuff. Now, there is a lot going on through the Uconnect system. It controls a ton of stuff, whether it's some of the performance pages or just you can even swipe down and access that rear view camera, which I really like. So even coming up to a stop here, trying to see what's going around, you can look straight down or back. That is a pretty cool feature. Then there's also buttons on the side for those heated seats, or you can do it just on the top of the infotainment system as well. Like I said, I've also got wireless Apple CarPlay in here. The Uconnect system is very responsive. It works really well. It's a great system in here. I love that I have control over all of that stuff. And you can go through monitor a lot of your different EV settings, whether it's a charging schedule, you want to see the battery performance. I mean, there's so much stuff you can go through. We could do a whole nother video just talking about the features in here. But really the cool things would be the power flow of the vehicle or your different range impacts. If you're like us here in the Midwest, obviously you know that if you're using some more of the electronics in the vehicle, it can take away from that range or some of the cold weather. So it is good that you can monitor that when you're on the go. Okay, so what about the ride and drive? It's great. I thought it was going to be kind of harsh, not as much fun. Now this one obviously has the smaller wheel and tire setup, but it's really comfortable out on the road. That's the best thing about these vehicles. When you're just in the regular auto mode and cruising, it's quiet, it's comfortable. I mean, like I said, 95% of the time, maybe you're driving back and forth to the office, going to the gym, picking up the kids. This can absolutely get that done, especially with a 308-mile range. I mean, it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, because now I'm pulling up to a stoplight and I put it in sport mode. Oh man, it is so fast. It's so fun. It's just a good time, especially with the speakers on the outside. Yes, I get it. It can be a little bit gimmicky, but it sounds cool and it's fun. And that's really what these Dodge vehicles are about. So they did announce that they're bringing back the twin turbo 6-cylinder. So I don't know if there's going to be any more V8s in Dodge's future. So they're going to put one of those into this vehicle is what I've heard. But I mean, what a great commuter, good-looking, stylish vehicle. Yet it gives you a bunch of tech and safety as well. Things like blind spot monitoring. I mean, even talking to the camera, I can see someone was in my blind spot out of the mirror. It's going to have emergency braking, the adaptive cruise control as well. You can eat up a ton of miles in one of these and be really comfortable while you're doing it. Now, on our digital gauge cluster here, that's one thing. It's a little bit slower to kind of run through here, but it does give you all of your pertinent information. The other cool thing is the performance pages. So you can even see like your fastest speed, which you can reset, or you get your braking distance, you can see your lap timer in here, and even some of the G-forces, which you know this thing can pull. With that battery low in the vehicle, the low center of gravity does make this drive like a smaller vehicle because it does have a pretty big footprint. The doors on this vehicle are pretty large. Not to mention they're pretty cool because it has an electronic popper on the side here. So you click that to open the door, which is pretty sweet. But there is a safety backup in case that doesn't work. So I'm gonna pop it back into sport mode here. Oh, yep. I like that you immediately notice the change in the steering. I mean, this thing just darts all over the road. It does have a really good chassis feel to it. I know some of the electric vehicles can just kind of be a little numb, but they have all that instant torque right away. This feels like it's a driver's car. It feels like something you could get in, calmly drive around, pick up the kids, go out on date night, and then on the weekend, drop it over into sport mode and have a lot of fun. And you know, with the fast charging, with the technology in here, with what I think is pretty good styling on the outside as well, I mean, there's a lot to like here about these Dodge Charger EVs. So we do have to touch on the price. So these start around $61,000, yet there are some incentives and different rebates you can get right now, as well as discounts, and they go up to about $77,000. So yes, I get it, it is expensive. But for the tech, the comfort, the style, some of the cool features you're getting in this vehicle, there's a lot to like here. And I think if you're someone who's maybe been driving a different EV, or you're ready to maybe consider an EV, this makes it easy because it does feel like, again, when you have that sound from the sport mode, feels like I'm in a regular muscle car. And if you don't want it, shut it off, take your phone calls, listen to your podcast. It's quiet, it's comfortable. There's almost no wind noise in here as well. I love the materials in here. Now, the other thing I talked about is that power shot. So when you have enough battery charge, you can actually use the power shot for an added horsepower boost. It's kind of like hitting a little nitrous button. When you put your foot down, this thing goes. And with that, it is even quicker. But one of the things I do like on the digital infotainment screen here, you can click the little button just to the left of the arrows here, and that kind of gives you just a direct focus on the vehicle. It shows you the regen, how much battery you have, and then just the miles per hour right in the center. So it kind of is like the race dash for the vehicle, and it's just a lot of fun. I think that's really what it boils down to. This is a fun vehicle that's usable day to day, looks cool. I think, you know, the noise can be gimmicky or fun, but the best news is you can turn it on or off if you want. So I think if you're in the market, you gotta get out. Take one of these for a spin and see what you think. Now that was just a quick look and drive at the 25 Dodge Charger EV. Now if you have any other questions or you'd like to schedule a test drive, you can visit us online at walser.com or stop by anytime. We'd be more than happy to help. Thanks again for watching.